This channel is supported by TrueFire. TrueFire is an online library of lessons from some of my favourite players. There's thousands of lessons on there. You can use the promo code JNC40 to get 40% off of any of their courses. Alright, I hope you're having a good time. This is a thing that kind of ruined the Gibson Murphy Lab for me. There was an interview that went up maybe about a month ago now with Tom Murphy from the Murphy Lab, obviously. And I think it's the most in-depth kind of look at what's actually going on there with Lee Anderton and Pete the Danish. I didn't really know exactly what they were doing behind those closed doors. Jake Loosemore, buddy that's actually been to Gibson, spoken to Tom Murphy, and they had a tour of the Gibson custom shop, but he wouldn't let them go within the Murphy Lab itself. However, I think the things that I knew about the Murphy Lab were that essentially they were using older finishes or older style lacquer on these guitars, and then presumably using a freezer to get some of the checking. The bit that I didn't realise, or I think is probably better left as a mystery or unsaid, is that they've got a small team of people that are using
I know that.
bunches of keys,
But they have put a lot of dents in guitars.
railway kind of nails and stuff like that
For a little jam, if I want a jam right there, there's a jam.
to really up the level of the stress on the guitars. For me, I think it would have been better off as a mystery, personally. I don't have an issue with Relics guitars. Personally, I have a few like K-lines that come from him and were intentionally either distressed with checking, or the white Strat that I've got has some kind of dents and marks on it. And also, the main thing that I like about it is that it has this really nice feel on the neck. Of course, you don't go denting the necks and stuff, although there's literally some stuff that Tom Murphy talks about, like putting, or banging the back of the neck. To me, seems a little bit bizarre. But yeah, so the K-line necks, basically, he just has like a really kind of old feeling finish, which is kind of quite thin, maybe sanded back a lot. And I think personally, from the aesthetic point of view, I don't mind the look of checked guitars. Quite a lot of the Nitro guitars that I've got in general, checking starts to appear. This is a 2002 Les Paul, and this even has checking on it. That's not the thing for me, which I think it has ruined the mystique for me. I think the thing is where you get the higher levels of relicing, where you get like the belt stuff and all of that. And to think that essentially it's a team of people, you know, using keys and stuff like that is what I think would now put me off buying anything but a lightly aged Gibson Murphy Lab. And I guess for me personally, I'm probably not in the market for that anyway. But a couple of folks that I've spoken to, David Beebe and Jake, both sort of felt similar in that, to be honest, it would have been better if you just left that door closed and not told people, because I don't think anyone is particularly impressed by being told that someone's taken a piece of iron and sort of hit the top of their guitar in it. And there is bits and pieces and times within that video where he's literally just sort of jabbing at a guitar, and they talk about, you know, it not being like an unskilled process, you know, that it takes people time to be able to do this. I don't think it does Gibson many favours. Let me know if you liked that as an interview or thought it seemed to make sense. I thought Lee was fairly candid about it and stuff, and at least they were talking about how they understand that Relican is not for everyone in general. That's a fair point, but I also think there's beyond that, even people like myself or Dave Beeps or Jake, who aren't necessarily against the idea of buying a Relic guitar. I feel like we don't want to know how it's made. You don't want to know how the sausage is made. You don't want to see what's in your turkey burgers. In general, I think what that interview kind of exposed or brought to light was that the Murphy Lab stuff is essentially they take a custom shop instrument. They have their own sort of Murphy formula on there.
We have had requests for our finish on a guitar without checking, and I hate to say this, that's not real feasible.
That I think is the nub of it, isn't it? It's
Yes.
just...
It's going to check.
It's good because it's...
And I think in some cases, slightly different plastics. I think most of the custom shop now has hand-wired pickups, custom buckets, I think they're called, of various types. And then they have 4 basic states of aging, from lightly aged to heavy aged. And that difference and the gradation is how long it takes them to bash up the guitars. And the heavily aged stuff is actually more expensive as well. Personally, I feel like the lightly aged stuff is already, so Jake's got a Murphy Lab. When you get it up close and in person, it's already got quite a bit of patina to it. It will have checking on it. And I think it's, to me, that felt like the perfect amount. You go beyond that medium to heavy, I think it starts to look a bit extreme. And the other thing is that the Gibson guitars in general, I found, age quite quickly. So for me, the idea that you spend a premium to get it extra aged seems, for me personally, I don't know if you disagree, or maybe that did sell guitars for you, but to me, I don't think the sort of video that I would have expected would have helped the Murphy Lab shifting their stuff. Let me know your thoughts if you've got any on that. But, you know, I found some clips in there and tried to sprinkle them throughout this. For me, it just seems a little bit of a... you're showing how the sausage was made. You're showing how... I don't know, it's like seeing the guy get dressed in the Santa costume and he's having a cigarette around the back of the grotto or something. Bit odd. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Or, yeah, certainly if you disagree and you think this actually showed the Murphy Lab off in a good way, I'd like to know your thoughts. But basically, different finishes on those Murphy Labs, and then sets of keys and all sorts of hard metals that are not just chucked at them, like they are, like Tom talks about speaking to one of the guys that was doing it, and the first time that he did it to a guitar, he was like, well, how would that get there? So it's not just dings, each and every part of it, you know, they have to sort of account for, well, why would there be a ding here? And they talk about like Slash being responsible for there being wear on these parts of the guitar, because you'd have some sort of bling in this hand, or, you know, the belt buckle. And he talks about, he's got the first belt buckle that he used to age a bunch of guitars from the 90s and 2000s.
This is the original belt buckle.
The Murphy Lab guitars are different in some regards, because the older ones used to just come off the custom shop floor and he'd have to try and make them look old. The Murphy Labs now are basically made with older style paint that does want to age a bit if you chuck it in a freezer, I think is how they do that part, and then they batter it about a bit.
It now has led, in my opinion, to the guitars we make today, because there are so many features that we've tried to replicate that we're almost back to the beginning, and we sort of make old feeling guitars.
I hope you're having a good few days, hopefully getting a break, and play your Murphy Labs if you've got them. They are wonderfully light instruments, I've found. They feel amazing in the hands, and they look pretty cool, particularly the lightly aged ones I really like the look of. So maybe that's all that particularly matters. Would you buy one? Would you save your money for something else?